For now and for the rest of eternity, my feelings for October are very duality of man. The last 2 weeks have been both so invigorating and so full of life, but also so heartbreaking and devastating. I have life updates for you. You may or you may not have noticed, and that's okay either way. I had to take a step back and take a break from social media the last few weeks. I needed to take a step back and reground myself and honestly just let myself be sad, let myself be emotional, and just let myself feel all of the feelings. Welcome to another weekly video. In this video, we're going to be going through week 5 of The Artist's Way. Week 5 is recovering a sense of possibilities. I still need to read through the chapter, but we'll talk about it. In this video, we're also going to be discussing those life updates, and I'm going to just sit and rant and chat, and hopefully you'll listen and you'll like what I have to say. And then lastly, this is also going to be a reading vlog because I must get started on Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. It is my Fable book club's pick for the month of October. I have barely read in October. These last 2 weeks, I struggled to pick up a book, and I still feel this way, but I always say if you're in a reading slump, the best way to get out of the reading slump is to pick up a book and read. And we're going to be doing that in this video, and the book is Katabasis. I've heard interesting reviews. I'm nervous to read it. I hope I'm smart enough. We'll find out. I do hope you enjoy this video. It's not all going to be sad. This is me trying to put myself out there and live again. It's my way of getting back to the comfort and balance. There's a few moving pieces in my life and some new changes as well. So it should be a good one. Hopefully. Everybody, meet Bucky. Hi, buddy. This is Bucky. He is our new English Springer Spaniel puppy. And I just woke him up from a nap, so he's probably a little cranky. This angle is better for Bucky. Bucky is 3 months old. I know, big yawn for a big boy. So, sad story. We had to say goodbye to our Beagle Basset, Mowgli. You've seen him in a few videos. He's very long. He looks like a hot dog. He was 9.5 years old. I had him for so long throughout my 20s, and he had been dealing with Cushing's. He had health issues. He was getting old, and a few months ago, he actually had a stroke at some point over the summer, and things just kind of escalated since. So we had to say goodbye to him. All I can say is that he gave me the best 9.5 years of my life. But the house felt so empty, and we needed to fill our hearts with some puppy love. Bucky is named after James Buchanan Barnes, one of the Howling Commandos in Captain America, aka Sebastian Stan's character if you're a Marvel fan or watch any of those movies. We actually watched Captain America Winter Soldier, and Sebastian Stan, Bucky Barnes, is one of the main characters in that movie. We watched it the night before we got sweet Bucky. We've only had Bucky for a few days now, so life has been very different. I am trying to get back on track with my morning pages. There's been just a lot of puppy time happening these last few days, and reading is basically non-existent. The last few weeks I was already struggling to read just because of everything that was going on with Mowgli, and I hadn't wanted to pick up a book. Oh, buddy, I figured we could chat a little bit more, but I'm going to let Bucky go. I feel like I'm holding him hostage right now. So say hi, everybody. I'm gonna lift you back up now. And that's what I meant when I said that life has just been very emotional, like a roller coaster the last few weeks. October is actually now one of my least favorite months of the year, but also we got Bucky, so October might be one of the best. Everyone deals with grief differently, and I feel like I had time to process everything that was happening with Mowgli, both Mark and I, and we had a moment to say goodbye to Mowgli, and he's up there with Tonks now over the Rainbow Bridge, and I'm sure he's getting all of the snoozes and eating as many cicadas as he could possibly want. Disgusting, I know, but that's what he liked to do. Grief is awful. Grief is so sad, but also grief just is a reminder that you loved and you cared so much. And Mark and I had made the decision that we wanted to get another puppy always. We were always going to be a 2-dog household, and the house just felt very empty. The house did not feel right, and we wanted to turn that grief into love and do something that would bring us joy. Mowgli's my number one, and I got him in 2016. I think I was 23. So he was with me through heartache and heartbreak. He was with me through all my stages of life. He was with me before I met Mark, and Mowgli will always have a place in my heart. And right now, though, I just don't want to constantly be so sad. I'm ready to turn sadness into something else and to fuel my life. I'm just ready to feel better, and there's nothing better than puppy love. There's nothing better than puppy smells, puppy kisses. There's nothing better than little puppy rolls. Oh my gosh. So that is my life update. And with that, I have to be honest and say that I've been struggling with my morning pages just because I have puppy time now. I have to take care of a puppy. And if you have a puppy or have had a puppy, you know how that is. I'm trying to get back to my routine and figure out what my mornings look like now, because I mentioned previously that most of my mornings I spent my time doing my morning pages and reading, but now with Bucky, especially since he's 3 months old and we're training him and he's still a puppy, I'm going to have to adjust my schedule a little bit, and I'll most likely have to get reading done in the evenings and after dinner. So really just accepting and bringing in change, especially with the seasons. I feel like this is a good time, and finding a new sense of routine for me. And that also comes along with YouTube as well. I have been posting once a week every Friday, and I'm still gonna try to do that just because I've really enjoyed it, especially with the content that I've been filming and sharing my process and my experience through the artist way. But I think I'm going to be posting videos instead of Fridays on Saturdays or Sundays, so I just have more time to edit, especially going into a weekend. I would mostly just edit videos on Thursday and then upload Friday morning, but I can't really do that right now just because I have basically a child that can't speak to me. Basically, puppies are like children. All in all, that is my biggest life update. I don't see myself getting rid of YouTube. I see myself still posting and uploading videos and filming content. This fall, I just feel like I will not be reading as many books, and my content will maybe shift a little bit. Who knows? I'm trying to do more lifestyle reading vlogs, so maybe it won't at all. But hopefully you'll see more puppy content because I am obsessed with Bucky. Oh. And one more thing about grief. If you are wondering if you've grieved enough or not enough, or if you should be grieving for X amount of days, that's not how grief works. I think grief and these emotions have been flowing through your life, and you're always going to feel them, but in different ways, in different stages. Some days might be better than others, but I think that the reminder of Mowgli, I'd rather it be good memories and good reminders rather than the sadness of how our life was the last few weeks before we said goodbye to Mowgli. So take your time, and that's what I've learned through this process and through grieving, that there's no right or wrong way to grieve. It's just about what feels right for you and when you feel okay to move on. Okay, now back to whatever I was doing. I am still reading Katabasis. I finally started. I'm like 20 pages, so I can't give you an update. So the next time I will give you a reading update, our first reading update. So far though, I'm liking it. It's getting right into the plot. Like there's no dilly-dallying, we're just going to hell. Why is it that I look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson right now? He should be honored. Okay, let's talk The Artist's Way week 5, recovering a sense of possibility. This chapter focuses on self-imposed limitations and challenging the idea that the possibilities are finite. And when I first read through this chapter, I didn't feel like I could find any ways that I could connect to my creative life. I didn't feel like I could relate to the reading. But then I realized that the Artist's Way is not just for creativity. Yes, it is technically focused on recovering or redefining your creativity, but also thinking big picture. It's supposed to help you with your life because all in all, your creativity can't improve or begin unless you have a sense of yourself and unless you have a sense of your life. And what I broke and when I backed up a bit and thought more about how this can impact when I backed up a bit and thought about how this could impact my life holistically, this chapter definitely made more sense to me, and I could find connections with the reading and my life and what Julia Cameron was saying. So with limitations, they can hinder our possibilities in two ways. One being if you take yourself too seriously, but then on the other hand, if you don't take yourself seriously enough, then it can kind of block your creativity. When I look at my self-imposed limitation, for me, it's that I take myself too seriously. When I'm working on a project or when I'm working through even the Artist's Way, I want to make sure that I am completing it to the fullest. I want to make sure that I am giving it my all. I want to make sure that it is, I'm going to whisper this, perfect. Even though I know that's not a thing. Nothing is perfect. And I am limiting myself because I am trying too hard to get something done, to find my creative side. And this chapter is focusing on how you are limiting yourself from all of the possibilities when you do so. And Julia Cameron, at one point, what she says is, if I can find it, she says, we must learn to let the flow manifest itself where it will, not where we will it. So it's the idea of letting the possibilities come to you rather than constantly trying to seek it out. Sometimes that's the best way to get your creativity to find you and to get that creativity flowing. And for me, since I am such a doer, I am a perfectionist and trying not to be in certain ways, specifically when it comes to working on creative projects, sometimes I might be trying too hard. And what Julia Cameron is saying is to let it go and let the flow of creativity come to you. Let the possibilities come to you. Don't always seek it out. And when we place these limitations on ourselves, it can make our life rigid and it can make it too structured. And I am trying to find a balance between that, both structured and going with the flow, especially now that I have basically a baby child puppy with me. My life is definitely not what it was yesterday or even just a few days or a few weeks ago. And I'm having to restructure my morning. I'm having to restructure my evening routine. I'm just having to go more with the flow because every day is so different with my sweet Bucky. And what this chapter has taught me is that if I try not to limit myself and say yes more to possibilities and yes to unexpected events, that might actually be a good thing. And it can bring good energy, it can bring good feelings and creativity and just enhance the process of it all. And an example is Bucky. We didn't really think twice about getting Bucky. It happened so fast and it felt like a very serendipitous go with the flow moment. And the thing is, going back to grief, I was talking to Mark about this. I was struggling with letting go of Mowgli and then quickly getting Bucky, and if it was the right choice and if we were moving too fast. And ultimately, he reminded me that grief is not linear, and with grief, it doesn't have to be all encompassing. You can still grieve Mowgli, but also find a sense of joy with Bucky, and it's okay to want a puppy and to feel good and feel happy, but also it's okay to be sad. And grief doesn't have to be the only thing that's consumed in your life. And what I'm going through right now, I can still be sad because I am. It's still so fresh. And Bucky is such a sweet joy in my life right now, and I needed that. But there are still moments that I think of Mowgli. Maybe that's a sign about opening myself up to more possibilities. Maybe that's a sign that I should be taking more chances because the outcome might just be a lot sweeter than I ever thought it would be. And then the second part of this chapter is called The Virtue Trap. It's the idea that artists need time for themselves. Artists need solo dates. They need downtime and they need to say no so they can fill their cup. And I actually really resonated with this part of the chapter when I took a step back and thought more big picture rather than more creatively. It's the idea of self-destruction and how we're constantly trying to be good civilians, we're trying to be good friends, we're trying to be good partners, and we're trying to always do the right thing to help other people, but sometimes that can get in the way of helping ourselves. And it's important to find that balance because when we focus so much on other people, we're actually not giving our artist enough time to create, enough time to recoup. And I'm not saying that being selfless is a bad thing. When we are constantly saying yes to other people and helping other people and going out with your friends and constantly doing things that other people want you to do, it's hurting our artists. It's hurting us in the long run. And it's kind of like our self-destruction because every single time we say yes to someone else, we're saying no to ourselves. And it's so important to find this balance between the two. I am such an introvert that I need my alone time. I need my own space. Even when Mark and I are together, we have some evenings where he plays video games and then I read or I take time to myself. We know how to find that balance between the two, and I think that's so important in any relationship, whether it be romantic or not. And so the idea that it's important to say no so you can take time for yourself and how that helps you creatively, I felt that to the core. I needed to hear that because I feel like lately I've just been hanging out with myself and I love that. And it's not that I don't want to hang out with other people, it's just that there is only so much time in a day, and I work 8 hours and then I'm tired and I come home and I eat. Sometimes I have to work out, and it's a cycle. I go to sleep, I wake up, I do the same thing, the same routine. And there is not enough time in a day for me to do everything that I want, and definitely not enough time in a day for me to create art. And that's what I'm struggling with so much. And now with having Bucky, a lot of my time is shifting. I'm having less time to myself because I'm taking care of a dog so that he doesn't pee and poop in my home. It's refreshing and nice to hear that it's okay to say no. You're not being selfish for taking time to yourself. You're actually giving yourself some self-respect. I love that. And Julie Cameron is not saying that you should cut everyone out of your life and you shouldn't hang out with anybody. And I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that it's important to find that balance so you can still say yes to others, but also you can take that time to say yes to yourself and fill your own cup, because that's just as important. I've always thought that you can help other people better when you help yourself first. And there's a reason why on an airplane, when the masks come down for oxygen, you're supposed to put yours on first before you put anyone else's on. There's a reason for that. So those are the key pieces that I took away from this week's Artist Way. And this week I'm focusing on letting myself go with the flow. And I'm going to take that into the next few weeks because life is chaotic right now because of Bucky. And I am choosing to spend time with myself and find solitude in doing that and just being okay with that. I am really enjoying this process of not just learning more about my creative style and my creative space in my life, but also how the Artist Way is helping me in my life. I know they're both the same, but it's like my big life, my life, and then my creative life is just a tiny piece of my big life. Just, yeah, you got that, right? Yeah, okay. It's not brain science. I'm sorry. So sorry. So sorry. That was a Yappy the Artist Way update. I am officially at the 30% mark. I'm on chapter 11, page 167, and this book is far from what I expected it to be. I wouldn't say I had low expectations, but since this is considered a dark academia, I was worried it was going to be a little bit too similar to Babel, and I cannot tell you anything about this book. I read Babel, but I don't remember it. I remember glazing through the story, and part of me wants to reread it and see if I would like it more now than I did when I read it back in 2021 or 2022, but also there's a lot of other books that I'd much rather read. So I was worried that I wouldn't be smart enough to understand Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. Katabasis, I am liking this story. It's definitely slower paced, and I'm glad that I'm taking my time since this is considered a dark academia, and some people are saying that they wouldn't put this under dark academia, but it truly is. I expected Babel level writing with this story, and it is easier to read. So you can say that maybe I am smart enough. Normally when I get to a 100-page mark, I am ready to share my first impressions. And so far, I am enjoying this story, but let me tell you a little bit about what Katabasis is even about. This is a story about two main characters, Alice and Peter. We read from Alice's point of view, though. They're both PhD students at University of Cambridge, and their sole purpose is to be one of the top analytic magicians out there. And the magic system in this book is centered around logic And how you use magic is by kind of being able to rewrite forces of nature and laws of nature in the universe, and be able to lie in the sense of rewriting that logic to create an outcome. And it goes into a little bit more detail about that. That's as high level as I can get for you. Since Alice and Peter are both at University of Cambridge, this is modern day dark academia, but the magic system is quite different than anything that I've read, and it is a little bit confusing, but you have to understand that R.F. Kuang comes from a academic background, so this totally makes sense for her, and I couldn't see anything otherwise. In the story, there's a lot of history, mythology, math, and logic, and Alice and Peter both have to use all of what they have learned and know to enter the gates of hell so they could save their professor. Ignore Bucky over there. Save their professor from death. They want to bring him back to life. And the reason behind Professor Grimes' death is very interesting. As you read the story, you start to get flashbacks and learn a little bit more about Alice's past, Peter's past, and how Professor Grimes is connected to both Alice and Peter, how Peter and Alice are connected and their relationship. You start to learn more about that as you keep reading the story. But what I found the story to be most interesting is right off the bat, we start off with Alice making her way down to hell. She's already getting ready to go to hell. And for such an academic heavy story, I expected there to be more details about how we get there, but I'm liking how we start. Hey, Bucky! Bucky got in trouble. He was eating a plant. What was I saying? For how the story starts off, I thought that we were going to have more background into the story, but I'm liking how it started off so quickly, kind of with a bang, because we're getting into the meat of the story. And because of that, we're backtracking a bit and the pieces are slowly coming together. It's a very unique way to tell a dark academia story, I think. R.F. Kuang is doing a wonderful job of sharing those details while we're slowly making our way through the 8 levels of hell. And listen, I've never read Dante's Inferno, and I'm probably never going to. So if you're wondering if you need any background information before getting into this book, you don't need it. And for someone who was worried about reading this book, I think you should not be worried either. You'll be able to pick this up. I will say that there are some history and mathematical terms and definitions that Alice and Peter communicate about, and it makes sense because they're PhD students. They're brilliant. I'm not that. I don't think that not knowing exactly what they're talking about takes away from progressing through the story and understanding what is happening. I hope that helps. Even though the magic system is unique, the modern times, or the urban fantasy as you might call this, is similar to how life is structured today. Alice is a woman in a male-dominated profession, and she is having to work twice as hard to keep up with Peter. And there's this enemies to... It's like he does this on purpose. So it's very interesting to read and kind of understand Peter and Alice's dynamic, because at some point they were lovers, but right now they're academic rivals and true enemies, but they're both making their way through hell together. And we don't know what happened between the two of them either. So as they're making their way through the 8 levels of hell, we're getting glimpses of what their life used to be like and what happened between them, and also what drove them apart and how they both have to unfortunately work together to save the professor. And the whole reason why they want to save the professor is because they can't see anyone else giving them a recommendation, and they can't see themselves doing anything outside of an academic setting and working in a field outside of being an analytic magician. So this is their only option, is what they're thinking. So what I'm noticing is that R.F. Kuang is writing about the academic field and what it's like to be a PhD student and being obsessed and so focused with what you're doing, and kind of turning that passion into obsession, and how the academic field can actually be bad, and we're seeing the harmful side effects of it. That's what I'm getting at from this story so far. Hey, let go. That's expensive. You can't do that. No. I'm gonna leave it at that. Gotta take care of this monster. But those are my first impressions, and I'm liking it so far. I feel like it is ramping up a bit, and I'm loving that we're getting through we're going through the different levels of hell, and each stage is so different. I'll give you an update later. I wanted to quickly wrap up this video and share my final thoughts on Katabasis, and also talk a little bit about my artist date and what I chose to do today. I decided that I wanted to try out the watercolor palette that I got a few weeks ago, and originally the idea was to use this canvas board, but I didn't have the proper paintbrush, and I didn't want to use this tiny little paintbrush on a giant canvas board. And the more I think about it, I'm really glad that I practice on my watercolor paper before doing something larger. I found this photo from Mary Jane's Ketch. I was on Pinterest and I was just looking up easy watercolor designs and things that I could probably practice on, and it popped up, and I wanted to kind of recreate it. Actually, I wanted to do it on the larger canvas board, but didn't turn out and worked out great. Here's the final product. Listen, I'm new to watercoloring. I am not really sure how to use pencil with watercolor, but I think it still turned out pretty well for looking at something and trying to copy from that. I really enjoyed it. Watercolor is interesting. It's very malleable and it's very easy to use, but also I feel like blending is something that I'm going to need to work on, similar to oil pastels. But it was really fun to just sit. I didn't listen to anything. I was just listening to Bucky squeaking his toys, and I created art this week for my Artist's Way. And you know, going back to the idea of embracing the possibilities and also just going with the flow, I feel like this is very go with the flow for me. I was so set on creating on this canvas board, and it ended up not working out, and that's okay, and it still worked out very well. And I'm happy with the final product. That is how I'm ending my week 5 of the Artist's Way. And then let's finish up and talking about Katabasis, because I finally finished. It's fine. It's okay. It's not my favorite R.F. Kuang book. Like I mentioned, and I'm not sure if I remember if I mentioned this, but I've read The Poppy War. I actually read it this month as a buddy read with a friend. I've read Yellowface, and I've read Babel, but Babel was so long ago. Bucky! Oh shit, 1 second. We have gates everywhere in the house so we can make sure we have all eyes on Bucky. And now he's squeaking his toy, as you can probably hear. So if I had to rate Katabasis and put it in the ranking system of all the other R.F. Kuang books that I've read, I would probably give Katabasis a 3 out of 5. And I loved Yellowface. I gave that a 5 out of 5 stars. And then Babel recently I finished, The Poppy War, the first book in the trilogy, I just finished and I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. It was good. It just really wasn't what I was expecting. And honestly, I'm not sure what I was expecting. We put R.F. Kuang on such a pedestal, and her books are either loved or not by a lot of people. I kind of went in with the expectations of really enjoying it based on the premise. It sounds very dark, atmospheric. It sounds very interesting and also very action-packed for some reason, and I expected the whole story to feel that way. Hello?
Hi! Welcome to our channel!
Go away. I haven't thought about my full review yet, and I've just jotted some notes down right here after finishing up the book last night. We know that R.F. Kuang, and maybe we don't, I know based on the books that I've read, is that her prose is just so detailed, and she writes and describes hell so well. So I'll give her that. And the premise was extremely promising. I just feel like I enjoyed the first half of the book more than the second half. The second half honestly dragged, and I felt like as we were going through the different levels of hell, not enough time was spent on all of them. Some were more than others, but I was just more interested in those levels rather than honestly what was going on between Alice and Peter throughout the story. And the more I think about what I read, I enjoyed the flashbacks and learning about everyone's past and what brought them to where they are today and why they are the way that they are today, more than the actual present story timeline of Alice and Peter going to hell. And that's saying a lot because the whole story is about Peter and Alice down in hell. I'm not going to spoil how the story ends, but the whole theme of the story is Alice and Peter choosing between ambition and humility. How far will they go to get to the top of academia? What will they do for success? And by the end of the story, I like Alice's decision, and I feel like she finds I feel like by the end of the story, she learns to choose for herself, and she learns to accept what's given to her and decides to continue on with her life. Do check the trigger warnings for yourself, but this story definitely has darker tones, and it mentions a few times how our characters have hit rock bottom and why, and that leads them to thinking about potentially ending their life. So check the trigger warnings and make sure that you are okay with moving forward and reading the book. Yeah, this book was fine, and I am honestly so glad that it's over. The cover is stunning. The spine is stunning. I just kind of wish that the book was stunning as well. I'm honestly very interested to see what people are saying about this book. My mutuals have really enjoyed it, but I'm like, there's got to be somewhere out there who's mid with Katabasis like I am. I don't regret reading it, and I'm glad I read it because I'm trying to read more difficult books and books that are outside of my comfort zone, and this is definitely one of them. But I don't know. I want to know what other people are saying about this book. With that, I'm going to end this YouTube video. What a freaking week. What a long week. This has been the longest week of my life. It's probably because I spent almost a week reading Katabasis, and normally I can read books in 2 to 3 days. I can read 2 books in 1 week, usually. But It's okay. We're slowing down. And clearly I needed it. I am so glad that October is almost over. Like I mentioned, October has been my version of hell, and outside of Bucky, hell, it has been. And I'm just ready for the holidays, and quite frankly, I'm ready for 2026. I will see you in another video next week. I'm pretty sure my schedule of posting is going to be every Saturday morning, not Friday morning. So turn your alerts on, keep an eye out, Saturday mornings. Have a great day. Bye.